June 23, 1944, near Bretteville-Lorgueilleuse, Normandy. Freezing rain lashes sideways across the hedgerows, drumming against steel helmets like handfuls of gravel. Mud churns under every bootstep, thick enough to rip a man's gaiter clean off. It is the kind of weather where rifle bolts stick, radios sputter, and visibility dies to a blur of gray. But on a collapsed stone farmhouse overlooking the Con Road, Corporal Thomas "Tommy" Hall, sniper of the Regina Rifle Regiment, lies prone in the broken rafters, motionless, except for the slow rise of his breath. Rainwater pours off the brim of his Brody Mk2 helmet, streaking the cheek pressed against his No. 4 Mk1T sniper rifle. Every few minutes, he drags a small waxed cloth across his scope, clearing beads of water before they can freeze. Next to him, tucked between two stones, a tiny flame flickers, a stub of a candle, shielded by his hand from the wind. A soundless heater for his optic, the difference between sight and blindness. Below him, a German patrol moves cautiously along the road. Men of the 12th SS Panzer Division, shoulders hunched against the cold. Their sentry calls are clipped and irritated. One mutters, "Verdammt, das Glas ist schon beschlagen." Damn it, my glass is already fogged. Another curses, trying to rub warmth into a scope that has frosted white along its inner ring. Their ZF-39 optics, so precise in dry weather, have become useless under the freezing downpour. On the Canadian side, Hall raises his rifle. He breathes in. The rain hisses, the candle glows faintly, and his scope, unlike the Germans, stays clear. From the orchard behind him, another shape crawls through the mud. Private Gerald "Jerry" Mackenzie of the Queen's Own Rifles, also a sniper. He carries a small tin, charcoal warmer packets issued unofficially from a supply sergeant who never asked questions. Jerry cracks one open, nestling it under Hall's scope mount to keep the metal from freezing. "Rain's picking up," Jerry whispers. Hall keeps his eye on the German corporal who keeps wiping his optic in vain. "Good," Hall replies quietly. "They still can't see." The wind howls through the hedgerow, carrying icy needles of rain, but the two Canadian snipers are calm, trained, patient, prepared for nights exactly like this. A runner crawls up behind them, splashing mud onto their greatcoats. "Medenville outpost reports the Germans think our scopes are weatherproof," the runner whispers. "They're asking command how the hell we keep firing." Hall gives a small, humorless smile. They'll never guess the truth, he thinks, that the secret was not some Canadian miracle rifle, but a handful of simple tricks, candles, wax cloths, charcoal warmers, and a doctrine that trained Commonwealth snipers to be self-reliant artisans of their weapons. Another German steps into view, taller, likely the squad leader. He signals his men to spread out. Their gloved hands wrestle with fogged scopes, some switching to iron sights out of frustration. Hall steadies his breathing. The rain beats harder. The wind shifts. The candle gutter shakes but holds. 400 meters, angle compensated for wind. He squeezes. Crack. A single shot echoes through the storm, swallowed quickly by the rain. The German squad leader collapses into the mud. His men scatter, unsure where the shot came from, because their optics, clouded and useless, offer no clarity. Jerry watches through his own warmed scope, whispering, "They're blind out there." "Not our fault the weather chooses sides," Hall mutters. He slides another round into the chamber as the Germans retreat deeper into the hedgerows, shouting in panic. The Canadians remain silent, ghosts in the rain, eyes sharp, scopes warm, waiting for the next target. Tonight, in this storm, they hold the advantage, and German officers would write later with disbelief that Canadian snipers continued to fire accurately through conditions no optics should endure. Hall adjusts his rifle, listening to the distant rumble of German artillery repositioning. Another silhouette moves. Another chance. He exhales slowly. The rain softens for a moment, only a moment, just enough for Hall to catch the faint outline of another German moving along the ditch. The silhouette is low, crouched, disciplined. Not a patrolman, a Feldwebel perhaps. Someone who knows what a sniper duel feels like. Jerry's whisper barely rises above the patter of rain on broken tiles. Careful. That one's calm. Probably glassing for us. Hall's eye narrows behind the scope. If he had glass, he says, he'd be using it. Below, the Feldwebel lifts a pair of ZF-41 optics attached to his carabiner 98K. He tries to wipe the raindrops away with his thumb, but when he raises the rifle again, the lens fogs instantly, a dull white circle swallowing whatever clarity the rain briefly granted. Hall watches the German lower his rifle and lean it against his knee, frustrated. The Feldwebel tries blowing warm air onto his scope, cupping his hands around it, but the moisture instantly condenses again. He can't see a thing, Hall thinks. Behind him, Jerry carefully shifts his charcoal warmer closer to his scope mount, the heat barely enough to keep frost from forming. Their scopes weren't meant for weather like this, Jerry murmurs. Too sealed, too cold, fog from the inside. Hall nods. Ours aren't perfect either. He taps his waxed lens cloth. But we treat them like they're living things. That was the difference. Training. Canadian and British Commonwealth sniper schools hammered into their shooters a crucial truth. An optic is a fragile extension of the sniper's eye. It must be protected like a wounded soldier. Coddled, nursed, heated, kept dry. In weather like this, doctrine becomes survival. A mortar thumps somewhere south, one round, a tester. It lands far off, a distant splash. Probably harassment fire, nothing more. But even its hollow echo rolls through the ruins like a warning. Jerry shifts slightly. Higher command said the Germans filed an optics complaint today. An optics complaint? Hall smirks. Something like, enemy snipers unaffected by weather anomalies. Hall steadies his breath. Good. Let them think it's magic. Lightning flashes, brief but sharp. In its cold blue burst, Hall sees the Feldwebel motion silently to two men creeping west along the ditch. They're attempting a flank. Hall's cheek presses deeper into the stock. They're repositioning. Jerry nods, already scanning with his warm scope, following the movement. Hall whispers, 450 meters, slight angle. If they're moving under cover. He watches the Feldwebel again. The German waits, disciplined, eyes narrowed against the rain. He raises his rifle again, choosing iron sights this time. No more attempts at the fogged scope. A pro, Hall murmurs. Jerry steadies beside him. Think he's hunting us? Probably. Lightning again, dimmer this time, but enough for Hall to judge his shot. He exhales. The candle flame flickers behind his hand. The charcoal warmer glows faint red under the scope body. The waxed cloth dangles from a button on his battle dress. Rain streaks his helmet, forming silver trails down the steel curve. Crack! The Feldwebel falls sideways, quietly, into the ditch. No shout, no alarm. Just a limp shape half submerged in brown water. Jerry murmurs reverently, that's one of their good ones. Hall doesn't celebrate. Good soldiers are never to be mocked, only acknowledged. They'll be angry now, he says. And they are. Shouts echo from behind the hedgerow. 3, maybe 4 voices barking orders with rising frustration. Hall can't see them, but he imagines the scene. Wet gloves, slippery bolts, optics useless in the cold. Every German rifleman wishing for clear glass and cursing the fact they don't have it. Germans firing blind, Jerry mutters. The first bullets crack overhead, wild, scattered, uncoordinated. Hall presses closer to the ruined rafters. Don't move. They're guessing angles. A bullet smashes into the stone inches from Jerry's elbow, ricocheting with a scream. The Germans adjust fire, pouring rounds into the building's facade, chipping stone and blowing fragments into the snipers' faces. Jerry wipes blood from a small cut on his cheek. Guessing very aggressively. Hall calmly removes the waxed cloth again, wipes the scope once more, and breathes slowly through the storm of debris. "You ready?" he asks. Jerry nods. "Always." Hall sights down the scope, clear as ever, thanks to warmth and discipline, and finds the German rifleman firing blindly through the hedgerow. 600 meters, Hall says. Crosswind. Adjust 1 mil. Jerry steadies his own rifle in support. Hall exhales. Crack. A German cry cuts through the rain. Another rifle drops. Jerry spots movement. More in the tree line. They're confused. Can't tell where their man fell. Hall chambers another round, eyes scanning. Canada's snipers hold the night. And the storm, despite everything, seems to favor them. Another target appears. Hall lines up the shot. The German soldier stumbles forward through the hedgerow, unaware he is silhouetted by the faint, diffused glow of distant artillery flashes reflecting off the low storm clouds. He pauses only a heartbeat, just long enough for Hall's crosshairs to settle gently onto his center mass. Crack! The man collapses into the muddy verge, his rifle slipping from his numb fingers. Silence follows. Not the comfortable silence of a battlefield lull, but something colder, tense, calculating, heavy with dread. The sort of silence that comes when an entire platoon realizes they're being watched by eyes they cannot see. Jerry shifts slightly, steadying his elbows. They're starting to feel it. Hall keeps scanning. Good. Fear slows people down. South of the hedgerow, a German whistle sounds. One long blast, sharp even through the rain. Moments later, multiple voices converge behind the hedgerow. Not panicked, but organized. Officers. Hall mutters, "They're sending leadership to figure this out." Jerry adjusts the candle's shield with a gloved hand. Let them come. Maybe they'll bring a dry optic with them. Through the shifting curtain of rain, the dark shapes of 2 German officers appear, likely a lieutenant and a Hauptfeldwebel, judging by their clipped, authoritative gestures. One carries a field map case under his greatcoat. The other waves a drenched ZF-39 scope in frustration. The lieutenant tries looking through the scope again. Hall can tell instantly it's useless. The inner lenses are fogged white, the reticle invisible. The lieutenant thrusts it at his NCO, furious. Hall, watching through his own perfectly clear optic, can practically read the man's lips. Es ist unbrauchbar. Komplett unbrauchbar. It's useless. Completely useless. Jerry bites back a grin. He's mad at the weather. Or maybe at fate. The Hauptfeldwebel then gestures toward Hall's ruined farmhouse, specifically to the upper level where the snipers lie. His expression is skeptical, almost offended. The kind of look that says, impossible. No one could keep optics functioning in this weather. Hall whispers, he thinks we're bluffing, that we're firing blind luck. Jerry shifts his rifle. Let's prove we're not. Hall steadies the number 4, T, adjusting for the heavier wind as the storm shifts direction. The Germans crouch, scanning the farmhouse and alternate positions, trying desperately to guess the angle. One German officer raises a flare pistol, likely intending to illuminate the Canadian hide. Hall murmurs, "Not tonight." He aims. The flare pistol rises in the officer's hand. Rain beads on the barrel. The trigger finger tightens. Crack. The flare pistol falls into the mud. So does the officer holding it. The second officer freezes in shock, staring at the body. Jerry inhales sharply. They know now. Hall lowers his rifle slowly. Yeah, they know. Because no luck, no guess, no blind spray of fire could produce a shot that precise. In this weather, at this distance. Only one conclusion is left for the Germans. The Canadians can see, we cannot. The surviving officer stumbles backward, shouting orders. Shadows scatter among the hedges, some dropping into the ditch, others retreating deeper into the orchard. A few try to return fire, but their shots are scattered, hopeless, more noise than aim. One German rifle cracks loudly, someone trying iron sights again. The bullet slams wide, hitting the stone wall 2 meters left of Hall's position. Jerry smirks. Iron sights in a squall like this? That man's desperate. Hall doesn't laugh. Desperation meant cornered men. Cornered men meant chaos. He keeps his scope steady, scanning the orchard where some of the Germans regroup. Through the haze, he spots another officer arriving. A captain this time, wearing a soaked M43 field cap plastered to his skull. The captain carries binoculars under his coat, wrapped in cloth to keep them dry. He unwraps them and raises them, but even before the lenses reach his eyes, the rain fogs them over. He wipes them, tries again. Same result. He curses violently, slamming the binoculars against a tree trunk. Jerry whispers, "He's figured it out." "No," Hall says softly, watching the man's movements. "He's just beginning to." The captain calls out to his men, short, clipped orders. Within minutes, the Germans begin pulling back entirely, leaving the dead where they fell. No stretcher bearers, no attempt to retrieve optics or rifles, just a slow, bitter retreat into the deeper hedgerows. Hall lowers his rifle. Jerry exhales. "You think they'll try again?" Hall thinks for a moment. Finally, "No, not at night. Not in this rain. Not without their glass." Down in the darkness, somewhere among the drenched trees, a final German voice shouts a single phrase, frustrated, angry, almost disbelieving. "Die Kanadier schießen weiter!" The Canadians keep shooting! The storm answers with thunder. Hall wipes his lens again, keeping it clear, even though no target remains. "You hear that?" Jerry murmurs. "Yeah," Hall replies quietly. "They can't understand how." Jerry nods. Maybe that's the point. Hall stares into the rain-thick dark, a place where German scopes are blind, but the Canadians still see. And far behind enemy lines, word will spread. Canadian snipers firing accurately through a storm no optics should survive. The thunder rolls for a long time, muttering like distant artillery. Hall stays prone, watching the tree line even after the last German retreats. Rain continues to sheet across the shattered farmhouse, turning every stone and beam into a glistening dark mirror. Jerry shifts beside him, flexing stiff fingers. "We should reposition, before they try an indirect guess." Hall nods. "Yeah. Mortars, maybe, or MG-42 blind fire." Behind them, a Canadian runner crawls up the muddy incline, breath steaming in the cold. He's young, maybe 19, but his voice stays steady. "Orders from Captain Callahan," he whispers. "Hold your position for now. You two have them completely pinned." Jerry wipes droplets from his eyebrows. "Pinned? They're halfway to Bayou." "No," the runner says. "Pinned as in, they refuse to move anywhere near your field of fire. Their whole line is stalled." Hall and Jerry exchange a look. One farmhouse, Hall thinks, 2 rifles, and a storm. They've just halted movement from a German company-level element. The runner crawls back into the night. Jerry checks his candle, its flame still trembling but alive. Hall observes it carefully. "We've got maybe 30 minutes left before that dies." Jerry pats his tunic pocket. "Got 2 more. Supply sergeant likes us, says snipers bring him good luck." Hall smirks as he adjusts the little charcoal warmer under his scope. Let's hope his luck doesn't run out before sunrise. The farmhouse creaks as wind slices through its frame. Broken shutters slam. The cold intensifies, deep, bone-stinging cold that eats into fingers, stiffens the shoulders, and makes a man's breath smoke like a locomotive. Hall blinks rain from his eyes. "You cold?" Jerry chuckles softly. "I'm Canadian. I'm offended you even asked." But behind the humor is fatigue, deep, physical exhaustion. Hours in prone position under constant rain grind at the muscles, numb the hands, and soak the spirit. Yet neither man shifts from his post. Below the hill, near the tree line, faint lantern glows appear. German silhouettes gather around a low ridge, some huddled, some gesturing at equipment. Hall raises his scope carefully. Through the warm optic, he sees them clearly. Not soldiers preparing to attack. not men setting up an MG nest. They're working on their scopes. German officers are holding optics up under ponchos, shielding them from the rain, trying desperately to warm them with candles, rags, breath, anything. Others are pulling scopes off rifles entirely, shaking them violently in frustration. Hall lowers his rifle slowly. "They're trying to copy our methods," he murmurs. Jerry wipes his lens and peers through his own rifle. "Let them. Their glass isn't built for that. Too tight a seal, no ventilation." "And the internal fogging," Hall adds. "Once it's in there, it's done." A brief silence passes between them, broken only by the relentless patter of rain. Jerry gestures toward the distant German camp. "You think any of them know? That we're just using candles and cloth?" Hall smiles faintly. "Let them believe it's Canadian magic, because the truth was less glamorous, but far more dangerous. Commonwealth snipers were trained to treat their scopes like delicate biological instruments. A frozen optic meant a dead sniper. A fogged lens meant failure. Rain, fog, frost, these were enemies with predictable weaknesses. Hall and Jerry had learned those weaknesses by rote, by ritual, by repetition, drilled into them at sniper school. How to warm an optic without overheating it, how to keep condensation off the inner lens, how to angle a candle so the heat rising wouldn't distort the air through the sight picture. Every habit mattered. Every movement counted. And in the storm, disciplined habits become lethal. Hall wipes his scope again, slow and steady, using just enough pressure to clear the lens without leaving streaks. Jerry laughs quietly. "My mom said sniper school was just learning how to clean things with more attention than a housemaid." "And shoot," Hall reminds him. "Mostly clean," Jerry grins. But then Hall sees it. Movement behind the Germans. A trio of officers arrive with maps and crates. They set the crates down, open them. More optics. Fresh scopes from a supply depot, still sealed, still clean. And the officers begin swapping them onto rifles. Jerry's breath catches. They're bringing fresh glass. Hall tightens his jaw. Fresh German glass could mean fresh firing arcs, fresh counter-snipers, fresh danger. "We'll need to move," Jerry says. "Not yet," Hall replies. He steadies his rifle once more. The candle warms the thin film of rain on his scope housing, keeping it from icing over. The charcoal warmer heats the mount just enough to maintain clarity. Hall inhales deeply. "They want to see again," he whispers. Jerry nods. "Then we remind them why they shouldn't." Below, a German sniper lifts his new scope, trying for a clear view of the farmhouse. Hall's crosshairs settle gently on the man's silhouette. The German wipes his lens, raises the rifle, tries to sight in. Even a brand new lens fogs instantly in the cold rain. Hall exhales. Crack! The German collapses backward, the new scope tumbling into the mud. Jerry murmurs, "That was their best chance." Hall reloads calmly. "Storm still ours," he says. But the Germans are not retreating anymore. They are reorganizing. They are angry. And someone among them has started shouting new orders. Footsteps gather. Movement grows. Something is changing. Hall raises his rifle again, eyes narrowing, breath steady, as darker shapes emerge from the tree line. They move differently this time. Deliberate, controlled, shoulders squared despite the rain. Not patrolmen, not scouts. Hall inhales slowly. "Officers," he whispers. "Lots of them," Jerry adds. 9 silhouettes, moving in a staggered file through the flooded orchard, each man hunched under a heavy greatcoat. Even through the rain-blurred distance, Hall can see flashes of rank tabs, silver, white, red. These aren't platoon leaders. These are battalion-level staff. The Germans have finally decided the situation is intolerable. Hall steadies his scope. They're coming to investigate, personally. Jerry adjusts his charcoal warmer. Or to shut us down. The officers gather at the low ridge where the earlier optics attempt failed. One man, the tallest, slams a palm on a crate lid, furious. Another holds a map flat against a fallen log, pointing toward the farmhouse. A third kneels beside the body of the sniper Hall dropped moments earlier, examining the still warm rifle. Hall reads their body language like a second language. "They think we're using enhanced optics," he murmurs. Jerry smirks. "If only they knew it's just a candle and some waxed cloth." But then something shifts. One German officer, older, mustached, wearing an officer's trench coat, signals sharply to the group. He begins speaking in a tone Hall has only heard from men who've realized something fundamental is wrong. Not wrong with the enemy, wrong with their assumptions. The Germans turn their rifle scopes sideways, examining the threads. They shake the tubes. They wipe the internal lenses. The older officer gestures toward the farmhouse again. Long, oval sweeps of the hand indicating disbelief, frustration, and something bordering on resignation. Jerry murmurs, "He's saying no optics should work in this." Hall nods. "Exactly." The older officer draws a conclusion the others resist at first. Hall can see their protests in the movements of their hands. But he insists, stabbing a finger toward the rain-lashed sky, then toward their fogged optics. He's telling them the truth. The weather is defeating them, not the Canadians. And the weather won't stop. As if on cue, a sudden gust rips across the orchard, turning the rain into horizontal needles. German greatcoats whip in the wind. One officer loses his cap entirely. Another clutches his soaked map, trying to keep it from dissolving. Hall doesn't move, nor does his scope fog, nor does the candle go out. He whispers, "Jerry, watch this." One of the German officers tries to raise binoculars again. The moment he tilts them upward, the rain fogs them so thickly he lowers them in disgust. Another officer grinds his teeth and slams his scope against a tree, shattering it. That sound, the crack of breaking glass, echoes even through the rain, a symbolic admission of defeat. Jerry breathes. They're done. But Hall shakes his head. No, they're about to do one more stupid thing. And he's right. The Germans spread out, forming a rough semicircle. They aim their rifles, not blindly this time, but in disciplined volleys, covering every angle of the farmhouse. They are preparing a coordinated blind fire suppression attack. Enough rounds fired together might pin or kill the snipers by brute force. "Get ready," Hall whispers. Jerry tightens his sling. "How bad?" "Bad enough." Then a German officer raises his hand. Rain streaks off his glove. His greatcoat flaps like a torn sail. His voice cuts sharply through the orchard. "Feuerbereit!" "Prepare to fire!" Hall steadies himself. His candle flickers. His scope stays clear. The officer's arm drops. Dozens of rifles ignite with muzzle flashes, sharp, violent streaks of orange ripping through the dark. Bullets slam into the farmhouse walls, flooding the position with dust, mud, and splintered stone. Jerry instinctively ducks. Jesus! Hall remains still, calm. He knows the Germans can't see a thing. He knows they're firing at shadows. He knows they're wasting ammunition. He waits until their second volley, their third. Then, between cracks of gunfire, Hall spots him. The older officer, standing exposed for a split second as he moves between cover positions. Hall breathes out, long, slow. He centers the crosshairs. Rainwater cascades off his helmet. The candle fights the wind. The warmer hums faintly under the mount. The Germans fire blindly. Hall fires once. Crack. The older officer folds silently into the mud. The gunfire falters. A ripple of confusion passes through the German line. Some stop shooting entirely. Others look around, bewildered. How? Their faces seem to say. How can they still see? Jerry whispers in awe. They're breaking. And they are. Not from casualties, not from lack of ammunition, not from the storm itself, but from the knowledge, the terrifying knowledge, that Canadian snipers still see them clearly, through conditions no optic should survive. That knowledge crushes them. Within minutes, whistles blow, orders bark. The Germans retreat, not in panic, but with a defeated discipline. dragging their wounded through the orchard as the rain pounds mercilessly on their helmets. Jerry exhales, slumping onto his elbows. They're pulling back. Hall wipes his lens one final time. Storm won. Jerry smiles tiredly. No, we just understood it better. Below them, the Germans vanish into the dark hedgerows. Above them, the clouds rumble their approval. Around them, the farmhouse stands battered but unbeaten. 2 Canadian snipers, 1 storm, and a night Germany would write about with disbelief. Later reports from captured officers would describe it simply, the Canadians kept shooting as if the rain did not exist. Hall blows out the candle. The tiny flame dies, its duty complete. Let's go home, he whispers. The storm finally begins to ease.